In this episode, we're going to do a recap drill for Domain 1 that is designed to strengthen decision-making under pressure, not just memory of terms. When you are new to cybersecurity, it can feel like learning is mostly about understanding definitions, but the real test is often choosing the right action when time is short and information is incomplete. Domain 1 covers governance, policy, assets, training, and metrics, plus the early operational habits that keep AI security organized and defensible. Under pressure, people often reach for the most technical-sounding action, even when the best first move is governance, scoping, or clarifying ownership. The purpose of this drill is to help you recognize which type of task fits the situation so you do not waste time on the wrong kind of work. By the end, you should be able to hear a scenario and quickly decide whether you should be thinking about governance decisions, policy expectations, asset visibility, training needs, or metrics and monitoring signals, while staying calm and systematic. Before we continue, a quick note. This audio course is a companion to our course companion books. The first book is about the exam and provides detailed information on how to pass it best. The second book is a Kindle-only ebook that contains 1,000 flashcards that can be used on your mobile device or Kindle. Check them both out at cyber.author.me in the Bare Metal Study Guide series. A drill is not a list of trivia questions. It is a mental rehearsal of how to choose the right move. Domain 1 tasks are often foundational, meaning they determine whether later technical work will succeed or fail. For example, if you do not know who owns an AI system, you cannot get timely decisions during an incident. If you do not have a clear policy on data use, users will improvise and cause accidental exposure. If you do not know where your models and data pipelines are, you will be slow to assess risk and slow to respond. If you do not train users, the same mistakes will happen again, no matter how many controls you deploy. If you do not measure key signals, you will miss early warning signs and you will struggle to prove improvement. Under pressure, these foundational tasks are often the fastest way to regain control. The first skill in picking the right task is recognizing the type of problem you are facing, because different problem types need different first actions. If the problem is uncertainty about responsibility, the right move is usually a governance task, like identifying an owner and clarifying decision authority. If the problem is inconsistent behavior across teams, the right move is often a policy task, like defining rules and making them clear. If the problem is not knowing what systems or data are involved, the right move is an asset task, like building visibility and mapping dependencies. If the problem is repeated mistakes by users, the right move is a training task, like clarifying safe behavior and building habits. If the problem is blind spots and late detection, the right move is a metrics task, like choosing signals and monitoring them. Beginners often try to solve every problem with a technical fix, but Domain 1 teaches you to stabilize the environment first so technical work can land. Imagine you hear that a new AI feature is being rolled out quickly and different teams are making different promises about what data it will use. Under pressure, the wrong move is to start tuning filters or adding detection rules before you even know what data is in scope. The right first move is a governance and policy pairing. Governance to decide who approves the feature and what risk thresholds apply, and policy to clarify what data is allowed and what is forbidden. If ownership is unclear, governance becomes the immediate priority because without an owner you cannot enforce policy consistently. Then, once policy is defined, asset work follows, because you must confirm which data sources the feature actually touches and whether those connections match policy. Metrics come after that to monitor whether behavior aligns with expectations, and training comes alongside to ensure users follow the rules. This order matters because it prevents you from trying to monitor a system you cannot describe. Now imagine a different situation where an AI assistant is in use, but people are reporting that outputs have become less reliable over the last week. Under pressure, a beginner might blame the model and demand a replacement, but the right task choice is often metrics and asset visibility first. You need to confirm whether there was drift in inputs, a change in data sources, a pipeline failure, or a change in configuration, and those are discovered through monitoring signals and asset mapping. If you find the data pipeline is stale, the fix is not governance. It is restoring correct data flow and adjusting monitoring to catch the same condition earlier. If you find a model update was deployed without review, then governance and policy tasks come back into focus because the root cause is a change control failure. If you find users are using the assistant in new ways, then training might be needed to set expectations and prevent misuse. The drill here is to avoid jumping to conclusions and to choose the task that reveals the most truth the fastest. Consider a scenario where you discover that a group of users has been pasting sensitive information into an AI tool, not because they are malicious, but because they do not realize it is risky. Under pressure, many teams react by blaming users or immediately blocking all use. But Domain 1 points you toward training and policy alignment. You might need a clearer policy that explains what data is allowed and what is not, in plain language that matches how people work. You likely need training that explains why the rule exists and what safe alternatives are, because people will keep doing what helps them unless you provide a workable path. You also need metrics to measure whether the behavior is decreasing after training, because without measurement you cannot tell whether the response worked. Asset tasks might also be needed to ensure logs and storage are protected, because the sensitive data may already be present in system records. The drill is to recognize that accidental misuse is best reduced by clear rules, good education, and measurable feedback, not by technical intimidation. Now imagine an uncomfortable situation where an AI system is running, but no one can confidently say what model version is in production, what data sources it uses, or who is allowed to change it. Under pressure, this kind of chaos can feel overwhelming, but Domain 1 gives you a simple priority: asset visibility and governance. You need an accurate inventory of the AI system components, their dependencies, and their owners, because without that you cannot manage risk. You also need governance decisions that define who can approve changes and how changes are recorded. Policy then becomes the bridge that sets requirements for data use, monitoring, and review. Metrics then provide the ongoing checks that the rules are being followed. Training ensures that the people who operate the system and the people who use it understand their responsibilities. The drill here is recognizing that chaos is often a visibility and ownership problem before it is a technical problem. Another common pressure moment is when leadership asks for proof that the AI security program is working, especially after a near miss. The wrong move is to scramble for activity counts, like the number of documents written, because activity does not equal safety. The right move is to lean on metrics that reflect real outcomes, such as reduced policy violations, faster detection of risky behavior, fewer repeated misuses, and improved coverage of AI assets under monitoring. If the metrics do not exist, then the right Domain 1 task is to define them and start measuring consistently, even if the first numbers are uncomfortable. Governance plays a role here because leaders must agree on what success looks like, and policy plays a role because expectations must be clear for measurement to be meaningful. Training plays a role because behavior change is often required to improve the metrics. The drill is recognizing that proving value is a measurement and governance task, not a last-minute storytelling task. Under pressure, people also tend to confuse policy with procedure, and this matters for picking the right task. Policy tells you what must be true, like sensitive data should not be entered into certain tools, while procedure tells you how to achieve it, like what steps to follow when handling a specific request. When someone says we need a rule, you must decide whether they need a policy-level statement that applies broadly or a procedure-level instruction that applies to a specific workflow. Domain 1 often operates at the policy and governance level because it sets the boundaries for later detailed procedures. If teams keep asking the same questions about what is allowed, that is a policy problem. If people know what is allowed but do not know how to do it safely, that is a procedure and training problem. Metrics can reveal which it is by showing whether violations are happening because of confusion or because of inability to comply. The drill is to listen for whether the pressure is coming from unclear boundaries or unclear steps. A practical way to sharpen task selection under pressure is to ask yourself what would make the next hour more productive. If the next hour requires decisions, governance is likely the right task because it clarifies authority and responsibility. If the next hour requires clarity about rules, policy is likely the right task because it defines what is permitted and what is not. If the next hour requires knowing what is affected, asset visibility is likely the right task because it reveals scope and dependencies. If the next hour requires changing behavior quickly, Training is likely the right task because it influences what people do immediately. If the next hour requires seeing what is happening now, metrics and monitoring are likely the right task because they provide evidence. These questions are simple, but in stressful moments, simple questions are powerful. Beginners should learn that being effective under pressure is often about choosing the right kind of work, not working harder. The final part of the drill is to connect Domain 1 tasks to one another, because under pressure you rarely do only one type of task. You might start with governance to establish an incident owner, then use asset visibility to map the affected AI components, then apply policy to decide what data access must be restricted, then use metrics to confirm containment and monitor for recurrence, and then use training to prevent the same misuse pattern from returning. The order may change depending on the event, but the pieces reinforce each other. Domain 1 is the toolkit that helps you keep decisions consistent and defensible even when the technical details are still emerging. The reason this drill matters is that the wrong choice of task can waste precious time and increase harm, while the right choice can stabilize the situation quickly. Under pressure, stabilizing is often the most valuable move you can make. As we close, the goal of this Domain 1 recap drill is to make your first instincts more accurate when the situation is stressful and the facts are incomplete. Governance tasks clarify ownership and authority. Policy tasks clarify boundaries and expectations. Asset tasks reveal what you have and what is affected. Metrics tasks provide early signals and proof of improvement. And training tasks change behavior, so the same problems do not repeat. Picking the right task is about matching the problem type to the tool that restores control the fastest. When you practice this mindset, you stop treating Domain 1 as background paperwork and start seeing it as the foundation that makes every other security effort work. That foundation is what keeps AI security from becoming reactive chaos, and it is what enables calm, consistent, defensible decisions when pressure is highest.
Thanks for listening. For more audio courses, daily newsletters, and more, please visit DailyCyber.News.